Hi there, and I've got another bag of parts, so it's time to shed a slight tear for the final part of building an upscale Lego space buggy. So first of all, a few thank yous. Firstly, thank you to everyone who's been watching. The views have been amazing and have increased each week from parts 1 through to 4. Secondly, thank you to everyone's comments. This week I've had so many I haven't actually been able to read them all. As usual, I'm filming on Wednesday evening and I've still got several hundred to look at. But I'm hoping that by the time you're seeing this video, I will have managed to respond to the last few hundred comments. And then thirdly, thanks to all my new channel members. If you're on the Big Fig level or above, your name will be in the description below. And after last week, Nathan Hartman is no longer on his own. He's joined by loads of new friends on the Mega Fig level. So huge thanks to everyone who's become a channel member. It really helps keep the lights on here at Chateau Minifig Jez, while I'm spending all the money on giant Lego space buggies. But before we finally finish off our buggy by building the wheels, a few upgrades for what we've got already from the comments I've had from last week. Now first of all, there are lots of issues with the blaster. And the first issue is nothing to do with the build, but something to do with its name. I had an awful lot of comments telling me that this wasn't a blaster, because back in 1979, Lego didn't make any guns of any kind. And this was definitely some piece of space scientific equipment. But don't worry, I am a fairly big Lego fan and I was completely aware of this information. But I do have to say that I am going to continue to call it a blaster. And that's because 7-year-old Minifig Jez, who was playing with this one, most definitely used it as a blaster. And that's because 7-year-old Minifig Jez wasn't aware on Lego's views on pacifism and war. He just saw something that looked like a laser gun and wanted to shoot it at other Lego spacemen. And then to the first of the amendments, which concerns the ridges here. Now, I naively thought that when I accidentally ordered 3 of these dish pieces instead of 4 of these dish pieces, no one would notice. But I cannot tell you how many comments I had saying I am 1 ridge too short. Well, thankfully, I've now ordered another dish piece, so we can add that in now. And an awful lot of other people helpfully commented that this piece, because it's so fragile and kept breaking off in the previous video, that I could stick a lightsaber blade down the middle of the dishes and into this brick here, and that would hold it on more securely. And that was really helpful because obviously I knew that an axle piece couldn't fit down there, but I hadn't realised that a lightsaber blade would. So first of all, I'm going to remove the 2 dish pieces on there. I'm going to add the extra one that I bought this week. So we've got those, and then this isn't actually a lightsaber blade, they are 4 studs long and this one is only 3 studs long, but I'm going to slide that down the middle of the 3 dishes, so we've got a bit sticking out at both ends. And then that piece is going to go into that dish down there and hold those together, and then the other end is going to go into the Technic brick here, not the Technic brick, the round brick here, and then that is going to make a much more secure connection, and that's not going to keep snapping off like it did in the previous video. The next upgrade is to do with this 6x6 round plate, and many people commented that it looked fairly ugly that we've got these anti-studs pointing out this way, and if I turned it round it would look much nicer if it was smoothed off. So first thing to do is pull the green end off like that, then we're going to remove that plate from the handle, and you can see there's the tiles we had on from last week. Then what we're going to do is add 4 2x2 curved macaroni tiles inside them. That's going to give us our smoother finish, and then when the handle sits in there like that, we're not going to see much of a gap between the handle and the smoothed off plate. Now, if I'd thought of this when designing it, I may well have turned this whole handle around so these studs were pointing the opposite direction so they clicked into there. However, I do really like that curved boat tile on the end of this, and if I turn the tiles around, we just have a smooth round tile on there. So I'm going to actually keep it that way, and the axle piece will hold this in place and those 2 pieces together. So I've got the green end, I'm going to put the plate for the newly placed tiles back on there, and we're going to slot our handle on like that. And just like everyone suggested, that does look a lot better. Next to the hole on top of the blaster, now this is something that I meant to do in part 4. I did have this Technic pin ready to go, but I just didn't put it in. So I'm going to pop that in, and that'll help close off that hole just a little bit. Now, quite a few people suggested I use this piece on that hole, which is a Technic axle with a stop on the end. However, I couldn't find any of these in light bluish grey, so we'll have to stick with the Technic pin for now, and maybe an upgrade later on if I can get one of these in light grey. There were also lots of suggestions for the green end of the blaster. Several people said I should put clear bricks in the middle to hold these ones out, but actually they are being held in by friction and they don't move at all. Other people said I needed to increase this piece out more, so there were 3 of them, so it'd be a full effectively a brick's height here to replicate the stud on top of the blaster itself. However, it's pretty heavy on this end as it is. I don't want to add any more weight, so we're just going to have to live with one for now. There were also some awesome suggestions about putting a Lego LED light brick inside this. However, there really isn't the space inside for that, although I do agree that would look absolutely awesome. Next, moving on to the jumper plate where it sits, I've now changed that tile in there for a 2x2 plate. So when the blaster sits in the jumper plate, the anti-studs on the bottom of the handle locate with those studs there and hold it in place a lot better. Also, a lot of people had other suggestions for how I should build these notches here. Now, I really quite like these pieces. I think they're to scale and they're the right height for what the actual air tanks look like. A lot of people suggested that I should use these half 1x2 round bricks. However, I think that would be much too big, and anyway, it doesn't actually fit in the gap we've got. As you can see, if I put it flush up against this curved brick, it just doesn't fit between this open stud and between the air tanks themselves. A lot of other people said that the tiny circle on a hinge plate would look better. However, yes, it would be smaller than these, but there isn't actually anywhere we can put that. If we take the air tanks off, if we put the hinge plate at the same level as the tiles, the round circle that sticks out will hit these tiles and you won't actually see it. If we put plates on here and then put the hinge plate on top of them, that will raise up the curved slopes by another plate, and then that'll be out of size with the open stud here. So it was a good idea using that hinge plate piece. However, there just isn't anywhere we can put it. So thanks for all the suggestions, but I'm really happy with the solution I've come up with, and that's the way it's going to stay for now. Moving on to the steering wheel, and most people absolutely love this build. Like I said, I tried several ideas in Bricklink Studio and I didn't come up with anything looking this good. So thanks again to Briquoleur for letting me use his design. And as with part 3, a link to all his upscaled pieces is in the description below. Several people said that because these pieces have tiles on the top of them, what I should actually do is replace them with plates and then they could stick in the anti-studs under here. However, that's not how Lego works. When they're in a straight line, that's absolutely fine. But as you start curving things around, the distances change. So there aren't actually any anti-studs that if I put studs on the top of here that they would marry up with. So that's why these were designed to have tiles on the top so they can replicate the curve of the steering wheel, but they don't actually stick into the tiles on top. Thanks to lots of people who suggested I should raise the 2x2 tile in the middle up by one plate. However, I think that was just because I hadn't pushed the tyre down enough in part 4. If you look at it at an angle, they're pretty much at the same level, so if I did raise this tile up by another plate, I think that wouldn't look as good. However, a suggestion on the base of the steering wheel I am going to implement. A lot of people said that all these 2x2 tiles was messing with their OCD because there's 2x4s everywhere else. So what I'm actually going to do, I am going to take these off and replace them with 2x4s. So that's all the 2x2s removed. And I have to agree that having 2x4s there is much more in keeping with the rest of the build. Moving on to the top of the antenna, and last week I replaced the single dome piece with these 4 quarter dome pieces, and I said that this had raised the height by one plate. And loads of people said, what I need to do is then remove one of these bricks and add 2 plates, and that'll reduce it back down again. And you're absolutely right, that would make it the same height as it was before. However, the height of the antenna wasn't 100% accurate to start with, and I think adding 2 plates instead of a brick would spoil the look of the antenna, so I'm going to keep it 1 plate higher than it was. Then moving to the inside of the 2x2 slope, a couple of people commented that I could have done this build a lot more easily. So by removing this structure underneath that I built last week, like that, I can then take the antenna out of its hole there. And what I'm going to do is add a Technic plate underneath. So if I click that in place here, that's going to be a lot of studs for it to grip hold of, and it gives me a hole exactly where I want one for that axle piece to go through the middle. So then on top, one of the 2/3 bricks with the axle hole in the middle that I was using before is going to sit on top of that plate in here. So I'm going to drop that in that hole and that keeps it flush there. And then the other one is going to sit underneath just for strength, like that. Then I'm going to reinstate that plate with the hole in the middle just to keep that flush, and then the antenna should happily sit back down in there. And that's a much more sturdy structure than we had before, because those bricks with axle holes can't push that plate off the bottom as it could with the 4x4 plate that I previously had. And then the final amend isn't one from a comment, it's one that I promised to do in part 4 but I didn't have the parts, and that's add an extra brick to the height of the air tanks. So I've got my extra bricks. I'm going to stick some 2x2s in the bottom of them just to give it some studs to grip underneath, and then one can go on this side, turn it around, and the other one can go on this side, and now I've got a little bit more height to our air tanks. And then just before we start building the wheels, a quick note about another upscaled project. Now originally this was just going to be a one-off project of an upscaled build that I could take to brick festivals and display. But I have been absolutely overwhelmed with people wanting me to do another build, which is why I did the vote last week and showed you the 3 different sets I was suggesting: the classic space scooter, the construction mini loader, and the classic town police bike. Now I had presumed that the space scooter would win, but by an overwhelming majority with more votes than the other 2 put together, it's definitely the mini loader, which I'm going to have to build in the future. Now to people who've joined my channel just during this series, I don't just build upscaled models, this is actually the first one I've ever built, and I don't want to stop making my classic space and my Lego City videos. But I'm definitely going to build the construction mini loader. I've taken my set apart, and as I thought, the part which will give me the biggest challenge is definitely that hinge. So it's going to take me some weeks to design what I'm going to build and also get all the parts in, but I'll continue to upload other Lego videos and we'll return to upscaled Lego when I'm ready to start the mini loader. But now we're going to get on and build those wheels. Now the wheels are based around a 2x2 plate. So at our 6:1 scale, we know that means this is going to be 12x12 studs and it's going to be 6 plates thick. So as with so many other parts of the build, we're going to start with some 6x6 plates and we're going to cover those with 4x4 plates. And then that'll give us a little bit of strength because it'll cross over all the joins. So a row up top, a row in the middle, like that, and then a row at the bottom. Now, as before, some of these ones I've missed out the plate in the middle. However, this is a crucial piece to keep all these together, so it's going to keep it nice and strong, although we don't actually need that one because no studs are going to sort of connect to anything underneath the space buggy. I am going to keep that one in for now, just to keep these 4 plates together and keep it more strong. Now, underneath, I'm going to do a row of 1x bricks, so I'm going to do some 1x4s in the corners to start like that. Then we're going to add 1x6 on each side and then fill those 2 gaps with another 1x4 on each. Next, so we've got something for the axles to go through. I've got some 1x4 Technic bricks, so we're going to put one of those on each side, and then for some extra stability I'm going to put another one on the inside of each of those 2, just to give us some extra grip for the axle pieces. So that gives us a height of 5 plates. So to give us our 6th one, I've got some 1x plates here, and I've got some 1x10s to go above the Technic bricks, and then some 1x6s to go down each of the sides like that. And then that effectively is our 2x2 plate. Now at this point in LEGO history, every single wheel in Classic Space and also in Classic Town had these red hubs in them, and each in the middle of those, that was the same size as a LEGO stud. Now coincidentally, LEGO make these lovely big red Technic wheels. Now most of this isn't actually going to be seen, but we are going to see the very edge of the rim of this wheel, so it did need to be red. Now first of all, we're going to make that red stud in the middle, and of course we're going to use our trusty 4x4 round brick. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to stick a plate in the middle as we did with all the grey ones, and then get a 3x3 tile and put it on top, and we've got our red stud. Next we're going to make a surround for that stud, so I've got these 3x6 semicircle round plates, and we're going to put some 3x3 curved tiles on top of it, and then we're going to do the same with another one of those, like that. And then when we get our stud and put it in the middle, we've got our stud for the middle of our wheel. Now underneath that stud we're going to put a round plate because that'll have an axle hole in it, and then of course we need to get our axle. And if we push that in there, we can then push that through the middle of the wheel, and like I said, you can just see the rim of the original Technic wheel. We've got our wheel with the stud in the middle, and then on the and then on the other side of the wheel, we don't want this whole rim rubbing against our 2x2 plate, so we're going to add a 2x2 brick in the middle there. Then we're going to add one of these 6x6 dish pieces on top. And that will click onto that brick. And then to tidy things up, we're going to have a 2x2 round tile with a hole in the middle, and then that gives us a smooth edge to rub against the plate. And then at this point, just before we finish off the wheel, it's time for a piece of useless Lego trivia. There are many tyre manufacturers around the world, like Pirelli and Michelin. But did you know that Lego is actually the biggest tyre manufacturer in the world? It makes more tyres than anyone else. And what we need are these giant Lego tyres. Now this wheel hub and this tyre have been in many Lego sets, and I've said in several comments before that Lego actually make 96 different sizes of Lego wheel. So what we need to do is run this tyre around the edge there and also pull it at the back so it's neat and flush on both sides, and we have our first Lego wheel. And so with a little bit of time lapse, we're now going to build our other wheel. And now we have our two wheels to add to the 2x2 plate. So on the underside of the plate, we're going to secure the wheels in place with two of these Technic bush pieces. So we're going to slide the wheel in through our Technic bricks like that. Get one of the bushes and also slide that onto the axle. Like that. And I thought we'll use two, give it a bit more friction, make sure it won't accidentally come off. And then also to help this axle not flex up and down too much, I'm going to add another Technic brick on there to help stabilise this end. And with the other wheel attached, the underneath of the plate looks like this, and the top looks like this. And then as if by magic, another pair of wheels appears, and we now have everything we need to finish off the buggy. So to get everything in frame on my desk here, I've had to go super wide angle, but the final moment has come. We're going to marry all these parts together. Let's stick that set of wheels on the bottom on this side. Yes, like that. And then we're going to stick this set of wheels on the other side. I'm really quite excited about this. Like that. And oh my goodness me, that looks so cool. Let's replace the air tanks on the front. And we have a Technic, not a Technic, we have an upscale Lego classic space buggy. So with mini space buggy sitting on top of giant space buggy, the very last thing we need to add, of course, is a classic Spaceman. But just before we let our upscaled Lego Spaceman ride his upscaled Lego space buggy, I wanted to show you a few other things I'm taking to the Lego show. First of all, on my table, I'm going to have this giant QR code, which I built on a live stream a few weeks ago. And this takes anyone who scans it directly to my YouTube channel. So anyone at the show with a phone can scan this, jump to my channel and subscribe straight away. And if you're watching this on a device which isn't your phone, why not try it out for yourself? Try and scan this now and subscribe straight away. Next, I've built two little card holders out of black bricks. So they've got a regular wall at the back with these curved bricks on the top of it. And then if you remove that wall, you can see I've put some panel pieces around the edge to give it a slight lip with some tiles at the bottom. And when you reinstate that wall there, you can add some of my Minifig Jez cards, and they can sit on the desk and people can pick one of those up and take them away with them. And again, on the back of those, you've got my YouTube channel and my QR code. But I told Brick Festival that my display was going to be called different sizes and different colours of Lego Classic Space. And we've obviously got the upscaled buggy, but I've also got a total of 10 different sizes of blue Classic Spacemen, and here are a few of them. So right down the end here, we've got a nano Classic Space figure, then we've got a micro figure, then we've got a Space Baby, then the micro Classic Astronaut, then of course the Classic Spaceman and his newer counterpart Benny. I've also got 4 other sizes larger than Classic Space, not including my upscaled Spaceman. One of those is a Brickhead, which was an exclusive Lego set to Walmart in the USA. Then there's the giant Classic Space plush and a blue Classic Space nightlight. So that was the sizes, and this is the colours. If you've been a viewer of my channel for a while, you'll know the years I've spent building this display, which was based on the Everyone is Awesome set. And originally I just replaced the minifigures with spacemen, but we've had many upgrades over the years. We've had the green helmet appearing. We've also had the new blue, dark blue Classic Spaceman, and also the purple helmet and purple air tanks. But on the day, I'll make a video of the display I have at the Brick Festival, and I'll show you around the other displays, and hopefully while I'm there, I'll be able to pick up a few Lego bargains. Now, as I said in an earlier video, because so much of my time has been taken up building this classic space buggy, my daughter Minifig Daisy built the upscaled racing driver for me after I bought the set. And similarly this week she also helped me build a Lego Spaceman. Now this is the same build as the Octan racing driver, only just in completely white. Now although the racing driver does have a helmet on him, this is based around the Lego motorcycle helmet and not the classic space helmet. So we needed to do a different build for the Spaceman's helmet. And as so many people have already built upscaled Lego Classic Spacemen, I thought I would use one of the ones that was already available. And that was designed by a guy called Watson Lego, and he sells instructions for a helmet and air tanks. Now I think his design is absolutely superb. We've got this lovely curve going in there around the face with a slight glimpse of the face on the side of the helmet. He's even added a 2x2 turntable base on the side of the helmet, which replicates the dimples used to get on the side of classic helmets when they had visors. For speed, I've used his air tanks design. It's very different to mine. They're spaced out by two studs in the middle here, and mine are obviously touching in the middle. So at some point I will update these so they match the ones on the front of my space buggy, but I was running out of time. This needed to be done, so I've just purchased his instructions and built his version. And when you put him all together, this is what he looks like. And in side profile I think he looks even better. And as with the set you can buy from Lego, his arms are fully articulated, his head can rotate, and of course he can sit down. But that leads us on to one other problem. Lego's upscaled figures have solid backs to their legs, and actual minifigures have holes in them so they can sit on studs. Now to sit him on the buggy I could just remove all these 4 studs and sit him straight down on here, but that wouldn't be very good. He wouldn't be fixed there in any way, and when you took him off we wouldn't have any studs on the buggy. And that's when Briquoleur, the guy who created this steering wheel, came to the rescue, because he has designed these, which are upscaled Lego Minifig Legs with holes in them. So what we have to do is pull our legs off our Spaceman. Pull that one out. There we go, some of the technical pieces have moved, so we'll push that back in. Then we're going to replace it with the leg that has holes in. Marry up the 2 axles, slide it on, and then pull his other leg off. Ooh, that was good. All the technical pieces stayed in the right place. And then put the other leg on, like so, and now he's got legs with holes in the back which still articulate. And for the very first time, get his old legs out of the way. Little drum roll please. There is our classic Spaceman sitting on his buggy. The only thing left to do is to give our poor Spaceman a face. Now this piece has only come in the upscaled racing driver set and also the original upscaled minifigure set, and it's still fairly rare. There's not a single person in the UK selling any of them. There are a few in Europe, but it was going to cost an awful lot of money to get one shipped over to me. But in true Nicolas Cage and John Travolta style, we're going to take this guy's face off and swap it with his. So there's our faceless racing driver, and there's our faceless Spaceman. Now we just have to pop the nice printed piece inside here, like that, and we've got a nice, happy, smiley, classic Spaceman. Now this piece is actually available on Pick-a-Brick on Lego.com, so I'm going to buy a few of them from there, as I'm obviously going to have to replace the one on the racing driver, and I'm also going to need one when I upscale the mini loader set. But coming from Lego.com, they're not going to be here for a while, so for the show at least, the classic Spaceman is still going to have to borrow the racing driver's face. But if we now reinstate the head on top of the body, and hopefully push that down, we've now got our classic Spaceman on his buggy. Future Jez here, busily editing the video on Thursday night, and I realised I forgot to mention the logo on his torso. And if you've been a viewer of the channel for a while, you'll know that Mrs. Minifig Jez has a vinyl cutting machine, which I've used to put logos on Lego train tanker wagons in previous videos. So I'm going to get her to cut out a classic gold planet and the red spaceship and whoosh, and I'm going to stick that on the front of the torso. So that's what I'm going to do for the logo. Back to the video. So as before, I'll let you have a good look around it on my nice black sparkly kitchen floor. If you haven't already, please do subscribe and turn on notifications so when I start building the mini loader you'll be notified of the videos. If you'd like to support the channel, you can always become a channel member and choose whether you want to be a minifig, a big fig or a mega fig. And of course every mega fig member gets their name on a brick in future videos. I am so pleased with how this has turned out. It started as just a whim of an idea of something I thought I could build and display at brick festivals, but it really has taken on a life of its own and sparked the imagination of so many other people. And from the comments I've had, it's also got a lot of adults viewers back into LEGO who don't generally watch LEGO YouTube channels, but they've come across my video and it's sparked their imagination. After the mini loader, I may build the scooter or the police motorbike, I'm not sure yet, but after looking at some of the sets I have from my childhood, I did have the crazy idea of building a slightly larger set. Now this space buggy only had 11 pieces, but one day I would absolutely love to build a set with 63 pieces, which is 6680 ambulance. It may just be a pipe dream and it'll never happen, but if I can work out how to make lots of complicated pieces like doors at the back, an opening sunroof and the doors at the front, and if my channel continues to grow and I'm able to afford the thousands of parts that it's going to need, maybe one day I'll be able to make it. So the only thing left to say is thank you ever so much for watching. If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you want to support the channel, please become a member, and of course please subscribe for more LEGO videos.